We do our jurying. When you've submitted your stuff to ZAP, we have our jurors, and we try to be inclusive to the different media types. But the jurors will do their judging between like 1 and 7, and if we have a bunch of painters, then maybe we only accept the 6s and 7s for average scores. If we have like 3 woodworkers, then maybe we become more inclusive. That doesn't mean we accept all of them. We still want to mediate that against having the best show. For our jurors, they're not FAFO members. They're completely neutral. We try to get people who are knowledgeable, because one of the kind of emerging problems in art shows is the buy-sell dilemma, where people are buying their stuff online, showing up and selling it as if it's their own. And I've seen this in paintings, I've seen this in sculptures, although it tends to be more prevalent in jewelry and photography. Those are a little bit easier to fake. So we're really trying hard to root that out. So when we do our jurying, we want to make sure we have people who can recognize that, look at the photograph of the jewelry and see if it's machine-made versus handmade. So then we get our acceptance. We have a wait list of people who are on the cusp, because there's invariably people who drop out. Then they're accepted. Then we have our judging. The judges are different every year, and because of that, throughout Florida, throughout the region, there tends to be repetition. There tends to be people who seem to be professional judges. These might be museum directors, they might be art professionals, people with the best resumes we can find, who will come for what we're going to pay them. When you apply to a show, you can go to the organization's website and see a description of who the judge is going to be. You can do your research, kind of stalk them online and find out, say, oh, well, this judge is a graphic designer, this judge is an architect, and I do fiber work, so they're not going to like me. And some artists will pick their shows based on who the judges are, and I would recommend you do not do that. Because the one biggest thing I want to say about the judging is that you can never predict what they're going to pick. It's completely subjective, it completely changes every time, and as an artist, you don't want to do these shows just for the awards. Treat it like I'm going for sales. If I get an award, that'd be a great bonus. Because you can be doing your best work. I mean, you really can't predict. It's so tempting to go through the next day to see who won and, make your own judgments. And they'll be different every time. So the judging is always going to be very subjective. We require that you be in your booth when the judge comes around. And most shows do this. And so if you have to leave, you can leave, and just make sure that you're there when they show up. When they come, usually there'll be an assistant from FAFO or from the organization who will warn you to try to make sure you're in your booth before they show up, just to make sure you're ready for them. When they come, they'll put a little dot on your booth, and that shows that they've been there. The way it works out with the number of booths they have to visit, they have to run. They have to go quickly, and they don't have a lot of time. On average, they have about 1 minute to spend in each booth. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And it depends on the way you do your work. You might put a lot of thought, a lot of effort. You might have a very unique technique. You might have a lot of conception behind it. You might want to tell that judge to sell them. If you just knew why I did this, if you just knew how I did this, you would be blown away. And you can't do that. You can't do that because they don't have the time. These judges are educated. They have a good visual memory. So sometimes they may just walk by your booth, glance, take off, and that can be so disheartening because it makes you feel completely dismissed. But that does not necessarily mean that you don't get an award. It's just that they may be familiar with your work, or they may have just made a snap judgment. They know. If they ask you, how did you do this? What does this mean? Then you can engage them, you can talk to them. But you have to let them approach you, because if you try to delay them when they're on a busy schedule, they'll take that's rubbing them the wrong way. You're putting them behind schedule, and you don't want to leave them with a bad impression of you.
So when you're walking by, that back wall has to have the best piece that you consider is your best piece, correct? Because that's what they're looking at first. That's first glance. Yeah.
So some of the judges, they're not specifically instructed that they have to give an award to each category, but oftentimes they are considerate of that. You know, they've done their initial judging, saying, well, these are the ones we like. Oh, hold on, we don't have any mixed media 3D, so let's pull one of those. So they'll try to be consistent, but they're not directed that they have to do that. And again, other shows may have media-specific awards. There's two main ways of judging. What we do is you and your booth are judged. All of your work together is judged. There are other shows like Gasparilla where they judge specific pieces. And those, you definitely want to make sure that your best pieces are on display to their best effect, because what happens is they will decide which pieces they want. They will have an assistant who pegs this one, and then you have to bring it to some other separate hall. They put all these kind of selected pieces in a separate room where they can see them all together, and that's when they make their awards. If you have one of your pieces selected, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get an award, but it's a really good sign. So again, you know, those are the two main ways that they do it. We at FAFO only judge the whole thing, so you don't have to move any of your art.